Oh, you know what time it is. Welcome back on this Wednesday edition of Mayday. Hello, everybody. Welcome to a show about the show. I'm your host, Trevor May, as always, ex-major leaguer, and major league pitcher. I'm going to do myself a service and call myself a 10-season big league veteran as opposed to a 9-year veteran. Because technically I had more than 9 years. I just want to be very clear here. So, within baseball, there's a big distinction. Don't worry about it. We have a jam-packed show for you today. Lots of things happening. We have the trade deadline ending tomorrow. I will be doing a different show for that. I'm hosting, which is going to be fun, but I don't know if it's been announced yet, so I'm going to hold off on that. And if you follow me on social media or something, I will put it everywhere where I'm going to be and what I'm doing. So, please bear with me on that. But we're going to be talking lots of trades. There are going to be breaking trades during the show, most likely. There has already been one a little bit ago. Trust me, I see them. We will get to them all. And if we don't go super in depth on a bunch of stuff that just happened, hour 2 is the time to do that. So I am excited to get into it. We have so many things to talk about. Some news, some controversy, some interesting little tidbits with some background that I think we can talk about. And it's good to be home. It was a long weekend. Sunday Night Baseball was great. Met San Francisco. It was a phenomenal game. One of the best games that I've been able to do for Sunday Night Baseball. I rarely ever even get to see a closer, so that was nice. We were in Orlando I was in Orlando with Kate, my wife, and we got to do some gaming conference stuff at Universal, but I'll be honest, I'm excited to do this. So without further ado, let's hop right into our first story of the day, which I think you're going to find fairly interesting. So it is the trade deadline. A lot of things go into the trade deadline, but one thing that I think that many people don't know is, what is it like for a player to be traded in the middle of the season? Like, what happens once you're traded? What are some of the things you got to deal with, and how does the team help you out? I've been asked these isolated questions one-off kind of over the years, but I thought today we'd talk about it. So when players get traded, these are the main things that happen. Now, you got to know, I've been traded before. So I was traded in the off season. Okay, so in the off season between 2012 and 2013, I was in the minor leagues. I was traded in the off season along with Vance Worley for Ben Revere to the Twins from the Phillies. So I've been in a trade, and to be honest, I found out about that trade on Twitter in 2012. So you can only imagine what it's like 13 years later. It's crazy. Also, in 2023, I was heavily floated as a person that could be traded, but from the Oakland Athletics at the time to someone who needed back-end bullpen help, because at that time I was the closer and I was throwing really well, and it never came to fruition, which was to this day a little baffling. But I also had that anxiety IL stuff at the beginning of the year, and it wouldn't surprise me one bit if no one wanted to deal with that. So that sucks. I don't know. That's not based on any sort of extra knowledge at all, but it just was a little bit odd. Anyways, that's not what I meant to talk about. So I have experience with trades and the trade deadline, but there are some rules that are followed, and there are it's like a protocol for once you're traded, how things work. And frankly, a lot of it sucks. And for me, I would have absolutely despised this. Fortunately, I didn't have a young family. I didn't have any kids or anything, which will make all this stuff so much worse. So just imagine everything I said, but also with like 2 kids under 5 or something, which is like half the league. So when you are traded, there are 2 ways you usually find out. If you are at the field, you are usually called into the GM or into the manager's office, and the GM or the president of baseball operations or someone from the executive team sits you down and says, hey, you've been traded. Thank you so much for your service. We got a good deal. We think you're going to do a great job over there, and go make us regret it. That's like something they love to say is like, you know what, I am more than happy to regret letting you go because you've played so well. Whether or not they mean that, it probably depends on the person, but you're usually told, or they try to, told by someone in, your orbit. But this is at the field. If it's in the middle of the game, you get pulled off the field, you just know, and then they tell you, right? That could happen, or you get scratched for the game, or right after the game, they'll call you in. It almost feels like you're getting sent down, which sucks. But in reality, you're just about to go to another team. The second part of that, if you're not at the field, it is very likely that you find out on social media. Very likely, because these insiders are so on top of this, the Jeff Passons, the John Heymans of the world, they're so quick with the story that the chances that if you don't see it on Twitter or Instagram or wherever, if you don't see it, someone in your family or one of your friends is going to see it, and they are going to call/text you immediately. This is very prevalent, especially in like basketball and football, because they're very close to vest with those things too, and it's kind of slow to roll it out. But in baseball, it also exists. So the number of guys that find out on social media, or someone else finds out on social media and then tells them before anyone else can tell them, is very high. Very high. So usually you're hearing from the GM at some point, and then the other GM will call you. In my case, I was called by the Twins GM before Ruben Amaro, the Phillies GM, called me, which I wasn't super pumped about, but I'll be honest, it kind of tracked with how that kind of worked at the time. So ideally, you want to hear from your team and then swap over and start discussing with the next team. If you are renting an apartment or a house, which is most players, players who have purchased places in the city that they play usually have long-term contracts. And if they have a big investment in that city, there's a no trade clause. They got to be in the situation. They got to be in the process. So they usually find out just by, context, usually. So most people are either renting or staying in the hotel or whatever. And in this case, the hotel is even better. But what you really do is when you have an apartment or you have a house that you're renting, an Airbnb, Airbnbs are usually month by month, so that's okay. But if you have a lease going through the season, there is a stipulation in the CBA, which there's another positive thing that players fought for, is that all you have to do is hand your keys over to the team, and they are now responsible, the team you were just on, they are now responsible for your rent for the rest of that lease, okay? So now it's their responsibility. You are off the hook, and any paperwork or any reimbursement that happens is between you and the team, and you should have to not worry about that at all. Of course, that doesn't go super smoothly every time, but at least the financial part of it is easily figured out. The vast majority of the time, the team then takes those keys and then sublets it to somebody else on the team. For example, in 2018, when I was brought back up after Ryan Presley was traded as the fourth trade that year, I was back up from AAA, and a month or so before, Tyler Kinley, current, shout out to TK, current reliever for the Rockies, had been DFA'd by the Twins and had vacated his apartment, so it was empty, and they were just paying for it. Like, hey, do you want this apartment? I said, sure. I moved into it, and it was in the second floor above a Target in one of the noisiest places on the planet, and it was maybe the worst experience I've ever made. But it was nice to at least have here's the keys, turnkey, go live. So usually that's what happens. The problem with that is you, as a player, usually have to report to the park right away. You usually get like 1 day of buffer. Hopefully, if you're lucky, there's like an off day or something, or they're about to travel to another city, so you get a day to kind of figure out your affairs. But 98% of that stuff falls on your family, your significant other, and your kids. I'll be honest, this picture is a little bit sad for those of you watching it. And I don't really like the eye contact this moving gentleman is making with my wife. But that is how it usually works. The player packs their bag, their big suitcase, jamming as much crap into it as possible. And then their baseball bag, and they get on a flight and they meet the team where they are. They just continue on, and then it's up to your family and also the team. Like the clubhouse staff will come out and help move things or move stuff out if they need moved out or whatever. But a lot of this burden goes on your family to take care of this stuff. And so shout out to all the families out there that make playing professional baseball possible, because without you, it's impossible. And anyone who's single and doesn't have a family usually lives out of a suitcase anyway. So everything they had can fit. And then they'll have like a box or two. So they'll just take it to the field, have them store it, or they'll just have them ship it somewhere and whatever. But which in many ways is easier, but is also kind of sad because you're kind of on your own. So problem is you don't have time to help your family, and I would have struggled, I think, with that, with just having her handle everything. That would suck. And then once all of that is taken care of and your life has been flipped upside down, you're figuring out now where you're going to live, getting used to the environment, whatever, and then you have to then go meet your teammates. And for guys who haven't been around very long, this is even harder. But it's a little bit easier if you're a veteran guy that you know that the team knows of you and you've been around for a while. So what do you have to do when you get over there in a very quick amount of time? You have to figure out your role. For example, we have Josh Naylor here. He's got to figure out where he hits in the order. What is he then expected to do in that place in the order? How many times he can play? How often he's playing. He's playing first base. Is he going to DH? What's it like playing first base every day in Seattle? Like, there's all this stuff on the surface that you have to get used to. But then on top of all of that, you have to figure out where you fit in the clubhouse, who you vibe with players-wise, and where you sit in the hierarchy of service time. Like, does this team have a bunch of leaders? Did you just come from a team where you were the leader, or you were the guy they looked to because you weren't on a very good team or whatever, and like you weren't ready? Like, maybe that's not a job you wanted, but it was just the nature of what you had to do. And now suddenly you are more of a role player or more of a contributor to the team, and you don't need to be on the mic on the bus, and you don't have to do all the rah-rah speeches or whatever. For example, Ryan McMahon was the veteran on Colorado. From what I've heard anecdotally from people who have been in that clubhouse, it was like a graveyard in there every single day. No one talking to each other. Everyone's like, oh my God, this is awful. Get me out of here, right? Let's just go. Let's do our job and get out of here because things are not very fun right now. And that's a very hard place to be. Then he goes over to New York, where it's a little bit kind of tumultuous also, but it's New York City now. And you have to figure out if they have Aaron Judge. They have a captain. Like, you don't have to worry about leading, but now you have to worry about performance, like winning the games much more than you just were. Everyone wants to worry about winning the games. Let me just be very clear here. We would prefer to be like, winning is everything, and that's all we're worried about doing. But sometimes you're just so bad that winning's very hard to do, and it is absolutely daunting and exhausting to like try to keep that energy all the time when it's not really reasonable yet because your team doesn't know what to do yet, right? So no matter what you do, no matter what you try to do mentally and mindset-wise, sometimes it's super duper hard. So this is what I thought was the hardest part, was figuring all of this stuff out. And you have to do it in one day. We're going to talk about a guy later in the news, about a guy who literally had switched teams that day and then was pitching in a doubleheader, right? Sir Anthony Dominguez pitched against his other team. He just walked to the other clubhouse, put on a different jersey, and then pitched against the team he was on hours before. That's crazy, right? He doesn't know anybody. He just went out to the bullpen and warmed up. It's like he was a guest, like a celebrity guest or something on the team. That's crazy. It felt like an all-star game for him, I'm sure. But he's been around long enough that he probably had run into some of the people. So the longer you play, there's probably some crossover, a couple guys that you know already that you can then feel comfortable talking to, and then you get kind of going. It's a quick process, and most guys who've been around for a while are good at it. But if you don't get off the ground running, it can be insane, right? For example, McMahon, again, as an example, he needs to play well right away. There's no time for a buffer period. You were traded for a specific reason. You need to be able to do that immediately. That can be, if that's like a first impressions are the most important thing situation, sometimes that is very important, right? Also, imagine you're a pitcher. You now have to get on the same page with a catcher that may or may not have caught you before right now. He's got to know what you want to do, where you want to throw it, and how you operate and how you think today. And especially for relievers, if that isn't close to dialed in yet, you could make stupid mistakes just because you don't understand each other that could lead to a blow-up inning that is exactly the opposite of what you were traded for to do. So that can be, like, if you're out there like, he doesn't know what I want to do, coming from a situation where you were very dialed in that way, that could throw you off hard, and then it could spiral. And that's what you want to avoid more than anything. And that's one of the hardest things to do. I can't imagine what it's like to be Danny Jansen and have to go learn a whole team. But when the catcher's moving, at least they're thinking, I'm learning the whole team, as opposed to one pitcher. The catcher's like, I got this one pitcher, but I know everybody else, so I don't need to put a bunch of effort into this. And that could be a problem. So just something to keep in mind when these guys are moving around, because there are things happening behind the scenes that they are not in control of, and it can really, really suck. But those are the main things that go through in a trade. It sounds pretty straightforward, but there's a lot spinning up here, and you're still supposed to focus on not only playing well, but playing for a team that is presumably better than the team you were just on, and you are going to take more of an active role on. So even, especially if you're not playing at your peak, it can be added pressure in an instant, and that can be an issue. And I think that we see sometimes that happens to guys, and they get a little bit buried, and they don't get a lot of grace, which sometimes you need. And if you don't get a lot of grace, it's just seen as a failure. And then you feel like a failure. You got to deal with that. So added pressure, it's like going from cold to super hot immediately. So keep that in mind when you're seeing these guys move places. Sometimes it might take a couple days. If we can avoid getting on them in their first and second outings or at-bats or whatever, if we can avoid that, it's going to be better long-term. Just throwing that out there. But that is what happens when a player, especially at the trade deadline, is traded. Isn't that interesting? Let me know what you think down in the comments, and if it sounds easy and that you could do it, because I bet you all of you could do this easy. So I don't even know what the point is of even telling you. I don't even understand. So next up, we're about to get into the news and talk about all the spicy details about a couple scandals we have going and some trades that are happening, what I'm hearing, what I think might happen. But first, a word from our sponsor.
Kratz, at some point, we're going to laugh about how healthcare was so reactive and not proactive, and we're starting to change that with Superpower. They believe every human has 100+ year potential, and they're here to help you get there. I'm a big believer in this. I just started the journey, so I'm excited about it. And what do you think?
As a player, you're always looking ways to improve yourself, improve your health, and this is an easy way. Superpower's made it way easier than when I was playing. You had to go get all these lab panels, and it was a long, drawn-out, expensive process. But now with Superpower, so this is awesome for me. I'm excited about it.
They'll send a licensed professional to your home, or you can visit a nearby lab. For a limited time, the FT fam can get $50 off an annual Superpower membership by using code FOUL at checkout. Just head to superpower.com and use code FOUL to get our exclusive discount. Your biology decoded, your blueprint activated with Superpower. After your purchase, they'll ask you where you heard about them, and please support FT and tell them we sent you.
I'm going to be honest. That is right up my alley. Go to superpower.com and use code FOUL, that's FOUL, to get $50 off your annual Superpower subscription. Live up to your 100-year potential Superpower pod. Thank you. All right. Couple things to do for housekeeping really quickly. Let's just really cover some stuff real quick. Join the Substack. We have a Substack that is IamTrevorMay.com, behind the scenes, player breakdowns, and more. Okay, make sure you go check this stuff out. We have we got Henry and we got DK producer David out here writing awesome articles. We're doing kind of collaborative stuff. Weekly, we have the weekly catch up with any content that I put out, either on YouTube or otherwise, will be in that newsletter. You'll get that every Friday if you sign up. All of this is free, but if you choose to support with monetarily, financially, that unlocks the ability to DM me directly and I had an idea to do a condensed Q&A situation there. So if you want to ask a question, that might make it into the Q&A video. And if you reach out to me and I say, hey, I'll answer your question in the video if that's cool. That's how we're going to handle that. And I'll try to give you your own personalized answer, but I also want to include it there. So thank you everybody for subscribing. We've gotten a few so far. Really appreciate it. And we got a bunch of special content that is only going to be available on the Substack. So I'll see you over there. Also, we now have a second channel for all the little fun stuff the internet says, the nastiest pitches, which we have a new format for that as well today. But we have a second channel that is going to be including more of this type of content, even some special kind of like fringy stuff, more like fun, goofy reaction style videos are going to be over at More Mayday. That is at More Mayday, youtube.com/More Mayday. Please subscribe there, and it's going to be a lot of similar stuff that is happening over here. So appreciate you there. And then we also have new merch. You guys have maybe been noticing the new mug I've been rocking. This is the Let It Eat drop. You say let it eat when you want to throw really hard. It's called Let It Eat. Let that arm eat. Anyone who follows the Jaeger guys, the pitching guys on Twitter know all about letting your arm eat. We have Let It Eat available. We got hoodies. We got like these linen shirts. We got the hats. We have some crew socks with the little ball on it. We got the mugs like we always do. And there is even an apron coming. I know. So go check it out. That is www.mayday.show. That I repeat, mayday.show. We got some new merch there. And then the final thing I have is today is Wednesday. We're doing a show. And next week, we are also doing Wednesday at noon Pacific time. And that is going to become our normal broadcast time. We are now doing Mayday every Wednesday at noon Pacific time, right after Foul Territory. Thank you so much, Foul Territory, for letting me change the slot. It just makes more sense. The show's going to be a little bit better produced, a little bit better organized, and I won't be scrambling every Sunday, which is a nightmare. Sundays have become a real problem for me. So I will see you on Sundays at noon, and we'll just do that moving forward. Hopefully that works out for most of you guys, but I can imagine Monday's probably not the best day on the planet, so we're going to Wednesday. Thank you so much. We have news, and I'm going to be honest, it's breaking. We have movement. Pittsburgh Pirates are moving Ke'Bryan Hayes to the Cincinnati Reds for a shortstop prospect and my man Taylor Rogers. Moving again at the trade deadline from a team that is competing to another team that isn't. This is something that it keeps happening to him, and I feel bad. I know Taylor really well, but interesting little take. I think seeing Ke'Bryan Hayes going to the Reds, I think actually works better at Great American Ballpark. Maybe he can lift the ball a little bit more and get it out. He likes to go oppo. He isn't the most pop, but he has a controllable contract. He's going to be there for a few years, and he's an elite defender. So they earlier in this year, the Reds, that is, designated Jamer Calendario. They third base a little bit in flux, so they got their guy. Interesting. There's been a lot of trades kind of in division. That usually doesn't happen, but we have Ke'Bryan Hayes going to the Cincinnati Reds. Isn't that exciting? It is. All right, moving hither. Into the rest of the news. A lot has happened this week, so let's get into it. Andrew Vaughn, recent pickup. Oh, I am being signaled from my guys. We have a new one. Oh my goodness, we're doing it again. Andrew Vaughn, you stay there, you wait. This is getting exciting. I'm actually really excited we do this. We have more breaking news. From Foul Territory Zone, Ken Rosenthal, the Mets have acquired right-handed pitcher Tyler Rogers from the San Francisco Giants. Yes, the knuckle-dragging submariner Tyler Rogers has now joined the New York Mets. He currently has, I think, the second lowest ERA in the major leagues for relievers. That is a massive pickup. He will be throwing in the back end for that bullpen, joining another back end reliever that was recently picked up, Gregory Soto, who really helps to kind of lock up that left-handed reliever spot in that bullpen with recently returning. I will think of it in a moment. I just had it on tip of the tongue. So now they have two lefties. They got the righties. That's a huge pickup. I gotta say, David Stearns, those are two very savvy moves. So Tyler Rogers going to the Mets in exchange for Blade Tidwell, which is kind of the big haul, and outfield prospect number 12 in the organization, Drew Gilbert, and a player to be named later. So that's quite the haul for the San Francisco Giants that are a little bit thinner on the starting pitching side at AAA. Blade Tidwell was a big pickup, but Tyler Rogers still is controllable because he still is not a free agent yet. I believe he has one more year after this, so he is going to be really, really great in that rotation, that bullpen to get them to Edwin Diaz. So I love it. Wow. Woo! That's crazy. We got to use our breaking news. That was fun. Okay, anyway, let's get back, talk about our man, Andrew Vaughn. Andrew Vaughn hit a grand slam yesterday in the Brewers' 9-6 win over the Chicago Cubs, the team that is chasing them in the division. They now have a 2-game lead and currently the best record in the major leagues at 63-43. They just won their 15th of 18. That's pretty good. It's a good time to be hot. But here's what's so interesting about this trade. And we have Andrew Vaughn at 27 since he's joined the Brewers. Check out this stat line. He's hitting .375 with a .439 on base percentage, .771 slugging, and 5 homers and 21 RBIs in 15 games. That is production because he's only been there since July 7th. He is having one of the best months of anyone's had this year. Before he was traded, he had been hitting .189 with a .218 on base, so he does not walk, 5 homers and 19 RBIs in 48 games. So he's already doubled his home runs since joining the Brewers. And if you want to know more about the Brewers, we have an article that was written recently. It's really good by David about how they do what they do over there in Substack. So check that out. But one interesting thing really quickly before we move on. This just shows you how important the atmosphere and the culture of the team you were on is for feeling comfortable and getting going, right? By all accounts, from every single person who has covered the White Sox and has walked around the White Sox clubhouse, it is like a graveyard in there. It is miserable. And if you wake up every day thinking that your team probably isn't going to win that day, the motivation to be good, to do the things you need to do to be good, is just not quite as high as it would be before. And it doesn't feel good to only worry about yourself. It's not fun. It just isn't. And when you go from being in a pretty dire situation that isn't very fun to be in, to a team that, by all accounts, is very close-knit, is a great clubhouse to be in, has a lot of fun, sometimes that acceptance is enough to give you enough energy so where you feel like you can make the adjustments you need to do. And we're seeing that right now in Andrew Vaughn. So if you ever had the question, how important is clubhouse culture? How important is the vibes for being able to play? Exhibit A. I mentioned this not too long ago, but we're going to talk about it again. The Orioles sweep the Blue Jays in a doubleheader, but they also traded for Sir Anthony Dominguez in the middle of the doubleheader. Now, I looked, I couldn't find this ever happening. I bet you it has. It doesn't seem too crazy, but for there to be a doubleheader around the trade deadline is usually pretty rare. So basically, Dominguez was on the Orioles. The Orioles absolutely destroyed Toronto 16-4 in game 1 of the doubleheader. It was a day-night doubleheader, so there was a gap of about 3 hours between the games, right? So in that gap, 3 hours, they traded Dominguez to the team they were playing in the other clubhouse. He then moved over, put on a different uniform, and then pitched an inning that night in a 2-2 game in the 8th inning to set up for closer Jeff Hoffman, who ended up giving him the run, and then the Orioles ended up winning the game anyways. So he went from moving from a clubhouse that's feeling pretty good about the win, but their season's kind of lost, to a team that's leading the division, but getting crushed that day. So I'm sure it was quite the whirlwind for him. Everything we just spoke about, what it's like to get traded, just speed everything up by about 10 times for him, and that's what you get with Sir Anthony Dominguez. So, I mean, kudos for you to immediately go throw against your own team literally hours after you're traded. That is pretty impressive. Unfortunately, Ronald Acuna Jr. has gone on the IL once again with a lower extremity injury again. No one wants to see this in the 6th inning of their game with the Royals, in which they lost 9-6. He came out of the game, said he felt some discomfort, and was walking around in a walking boot, which you never want to see that, especially with a guy who's had 2 ACLs, one in each knee fixed in the last few years. Hate to see it. But so we're going to watch that closely, pay attention to that, see what that means for them and him. Real quickly, a little comment on the way he gets hurt a lot. The interesting thing about knee injuries is they're oftentimes associated with stability of the knee, not like muscles, okay? So when it's tendons and ligaments and stuff that are holding your knee stable, right? Any little weird thing, like they're there to buckle those things, make them feel safe and secure. So if they don't feel safe and secure, or they didn't for a long time, you get surgery and you got that weakness, you're working through it, it's very easy to build up compensation somewhere else in your body. That's what our bodies do naturally, they compensate. So for him to tear the other knee and then have his ankle or his foot or whatever it is that's bothering him now also hurt, there's a series of compensation that unfortunately, I don't think that, but let me be very clear, I don't think there's anything he could do. I think he's doing everything he could. I don't think he's not working hard or anything. I think the nature of playing, and he's an explosive player, and he plays with speed, he runs, he's not a DH, right? He can't just stay off his feet. We're just seeing him get compensation injuries over and over again, and it's just a chain of events that are going to keep happening, unfortunately. So hopefully this is something minor, and every single time it happens, like the injury is more of like a use injury that's just fatigue, and then he can work through it, and then eventually the compensation will be take care of it through a full off-season rest. But, you know, if I were him, I would seriously think about not playing winter ball. So, hate to see it, but it is what it is. And also, Seth Lugo won his first start since agreeing to an extension for $46 million over the next 2 years. He's like, what? You want to trade me? How about you extend me? So, congratulations to Seth. Cat Dad. All right, moving on. I might get a little somber for this one. After 18 seasons, Jesse Chavez has retired. He was traded 11 times in his career, so I think we should start calling this the Jesse Chavez trade deadline. The Chavez deadline. That's what I'm calling it from now on. You heard it here first, folks. So there's a lot we could say about him. He signed with the Braves earlier this year for like the 51st time, which is a major league record. But who knows? Rich Hill might sign with the Red Sox again and then just completely shatter it. So I want to give a little moment of silence to reflect on Jesse Chavez's career. Thank you. Moving on. Love you, man. Okay, now let's get into the spicy stuff. It's spicy news time. Emmanuel Clase on Monday was placed on the non-disciplinary paid leave through August 31st. As a part of Major League Baseball's investigation into sports gambling. You may have heard this story before. That is because his teammate Luis L. Ortiz also is on paid leave for the same thing until the same time, August 31st. Now, in a statement, the Guardian said there's no additional players being looked at and there's no organizational people being looked at either. So this is the only two people that are associated or are being looked at this time. So that at least is some good news. The bleeding has been stopped. And they've also said that they are unrelated situations and things that triggered the investigation. We don't know what triggered the investigation into Class A yet, but we do know that they have explicitly said they are not related with each other, which seems a little bit hard to believe because they're on the same team and they presumably know each other. But there is also a chance that they're not, that it's just not the same situation, like not the same games or whatever. That could be it either. I don't really know. We'll find out as the investigation continues, but we're also going to go more into depth with this whole situation in our Going Deep segment this show, so bear with me there. All right. In our final piece of news, boy, oh boy, am I excited to talk about this. Bryce Harper versus Rob Manfred. Let's go. Let's get into it. Okay, so last week we talked, or a couple weeks ago, we talked a little bit about the Phillies and their meeting they had with Rob Manfred in their clubhouse. Rob has been doing this tour through all 30 clubhouses this year. Usually he does it the year before the CBA, which expires next offseason, but he's doing it this year. We'll talk a little bit about that in a minute. But he reported by Jeff Passan, said Bryce Harper stood nose to nose with Rob Manfred during a meeting between the Major League Baseball commissioner and the team last week. Nose to nose. I'm imagining him being like this close, just giving him a little Eskimo kiss. I actually don't. Just giving a little nose to nose action. It's super cute. And then he told him to, if he wants to, well, hold on, I have the quote here. Telling him to get the F out of our clubhouse if Manfred wanted to talk about the potential implementation of a salary cap. Pause. Oh, he's in trouble. So, but to Rob's credit, he stepped right up to him and said, hey, I will not get the F out of here. We need to talk about the economic problems and how to grow the game. Of all people to diffuse the situation, Nick Castellanos is the guy who stood up and was like, hey guys, I still got questions. Can we continue this thing? And at the end of the meeting, it sounds like Bryce Harper and him shook hands. That is Rob Manfred. But it was still a little bit contentious. It wasn't super exciting or super like conciliatory for those who saw it. And sources also said Harper declined to answer the phone calls from Rob the next day, which I love. But that's just pettiness. That's my petty part of, I'm having a little petty party, so I enjoy that stuff. Okay, so there's a lot to unpack here, and I just want to get into it just a little bit and give it the time that it deserves because there's some meat here. There's some meat. We got to talk about it, and if we have to switch some things around in order to get to mace-plaining here in a moment, then we will do that. But there's a few things that I want to point out here and that are important to understand because this conversation is happening and happening big time. A lot of people see Bryce Harper saying, you're not the guy to complain about the cap because you are making the most money on the team. I totally understand that point of view, and it's easy to see him a little bit more. There are not a lot of fans, but certain fans that are like, why is this guy complaining? And I want to just push back a little bit on that and say, it's not complaining because he is the leader of the team. The nature of the game is the guys being paid the most money are the ones that speak for your team. So they are going to be the ones having these making the comments here, speaking on behalf of their group, because that is what they're paid for, right? That's what they're paid for. So I know if you don't look too deep, it's a bad look, but that is who you want to talk. So believe it or not, he might not be thinking about himself. He might be thinking about the other guys that he is representing. So the rest of this, though, I think we got to bust out the old whiteboard. It's time to do it. Let's talk about this a little bit. All right. All right. I can't wait. I love it. Let me get a heck yeah. Let's go whiteboards. Okay. So this is why this stuff is happening. Okay. All right. So first thing you need to understand, why is Rob meeting with all the teams this year? There's two major reasons, okay? One is the Players Association just isn't ready to inform everyone about what's going on yet. They usually do their round of meetings, the spring training of the year before the CBA, and then they are meeting with the teams as well. But the PA did not anticipate the league doing this a year early. So the league is kind of doing it. The PA is not prepared to give everyone the armor and know what the arguments are going to be yet. And so Rob sees an opportunity there, which makes a lot of sense. There is an opportunity there. He feels that this is the best chance for him to get directly to the players that he needs to convert or bring over to his side, okay? Also, I don't know if you guys have noticed, but Rob has done a little bit of media lately, which is also very interesting to me, considering he doesn't like doing media. No, he's kind of notorious for it, but he went on Barstool with Big Cat, and he also went on with Pat McAfee, which is interesting, to say the least. And I think he is following a certain model that has worked in our political climate as well. Just the nature of, if you want to get a message out, that is how you do it now, and he saw that as an opportunity as well. That's all I'm gonna say there. So he went to the guys with the biggest, megaphones to get his message out, and he presented himself as someone, as a certain person that might endear him to more people, which, again, it's a good strategy. So just two things to make sure. I wanted you guys to know that is why these things are happening right now. Okay, so let's talk about really quickly, because this is happening. I asked the question, if you're in favor of a salary cap, why? Okay, and I just wanted to know what everyone sees the problems as being, because there is a thing happening here where guys like Bryce Harper are going to get angry. We're going to get one quote from them, and everyone's going to assume a bunch of things like what they want or whatever. Okay, right now there are a few problems in the league. Okay. So we need to agree on what these problems are before we can even have a negotiation, which I think that's the main issue. So I just want to put this in black and white, or white and teal, cyan. What is this color? I don't know. Okay, so the players believe, start typing. Okay, so players believe teams are cheap. They can't compete. Right? So basically, we feel that the cheap teams, like the Pirates, aren't spending the money they need to spend, and that's why they're not competitive. That's what the players believe, okay? But then, what Rob wants you to think is, players are too expensive. And that's why these cheap teams aren't paying for them. I think they both have merits, right? I think they both have merits. But until we agree on what the problem is, you can't have, these are two problems with different solutions. So how are you supposed to find solutions if you can't agree on what the problems are? And that's, I think, what's happening here. Correct me if I'm wrong, guys, in the chat and also in the comments on the video. Do you believe that both sides agree on what the problem is? Okay, so we hear that is a way to solve the economic problems, meaning when ticket prices are up or streaming prices are up, that's what they say. Our biggest expense is players, and when expenses are high, we can't lower prices like that. 101 version of economics, sure. Is that what's happening in reality? Absolutely not. It's way more complicated than that. And there's decisions being made by all kinds of reasons, like taxes and amortization of assets and moving equity from one business to another business to prop it up. Like, there's all kinds of crap happening. It's not that straightforward. It never is. So I want to be very clear about that. But who wants to read 1,000 documents about taxes? Nobody. You have me. Anyways, okay, so Rob Manfred also says we have an economics problem, okay? And he never says what that is, ever, which is one major red flag, because it would require scrutiny. He doesn't want you to look into any of the financials. He just wants you to think it. Like, I want you to be in this range of knowledge. I don't want you to go too far, and I don't want you to have none. You just need to know a little bit, and that's good, right? That's what he would prefer to have, where he'd prefer to have everybody. And he would prefer to have players there too, okay? So I'm gonna extrapolate, I'm gonna guess. One, TV's going away. We don't know how to get money from TV. Okay, we don't know how to get money from TV. I get it, that's scary, it's uncertain, and that is hurting revenues, even though every single year the revenue for the league goes up somehow. I don't know. Those two things keep happening simultaneously, and it is pretty crazy, okay? So if that's a thing, that's a thing. Great, okay. What is the issue and how can we fix it? Tell us exactly what problem the TV thing is causing, like how much money is missing, where is the uncertainty, whatever, and maybe we can find some way to alleviate that. That first part isn't gonna happen. We're not gonna be brought in as a partner, we being players, are not gonna be brought in as a partner for that stuff. So that's not gonna happen. So what do you do from there? Nothing. There's nothing you can do. And we're gonna run into this wall over and over and over again. So let's talk, before we move on, let's talk really quickly about Bryce Harper's comments about the cap and what is a cap and what does a cap do, okay? A lot of people are talking about, and I'm gonna bring out the writing tool here because I love my writing here. We have people say, just do a cap. Cap works. This is hard as heck. I need a little like stylus. Cap works, NBA and NFL, okay? Okay, cool. The cap works, and what the cap is, we talked about last week, was there's a floor and there's a top, and there's a range of money that every single team has to pay for their players, okay? People mention there's a lot more parity in the NFL, meaning a team doesn't suck for very long in the NFL. A team isn't terrible forever in the NFL, except for the Jets. The Jets suck all the time. I don't know how that's possible. It's actually baffling, but this isn't to shit on the Jets. So we don't know why there's parity, but there is. We do know why there's parity, because 50% of the success is dependent on how good your quarterback is. There's no minor leagues, there's no development, and contracts are only 3 years long. So like look at the Washington Commanders. They got a good quarterback and boom, they were good. Like that's how football works. Baseball doesn't work like that because no player has that much effect on a game. You can't do that. And they have to develop. It's a very game of inches. There's all these fine motor skills that take longer to develop. So like, it's just not the way the game works. It has nothing to do with money. So let me just be very clear. The NFL, their CBA is horrendous. It's awful, and they all hate it. They only get to renegotiate once every 10 years. They can be fined up to $100,000 for whatever. Remember when Marshawn Lynch said, "I'm just here so I don't get fined"? It's because if he says anything they don't like, they'll fine him. So how can players speak out against their commissioner and the way he operates if they're going to get fined? They can't. So what they did was took such a bad deal. They don't have guaranteed contracts, guys. They took such a bad deal that it's so bad that they don't have any recourse now. Like, they might as well not be in a union. So to tell me that their deal works, it works for Jerry Jones and company. It's a bad situation. They keep adding games or whatever. They're doing it unilaterally. That is not a healthy way to have healthy players that are doing good work. It's not. So unanimously, everyone hates I understand that it's fun to watch because there's red zone and stuff, and we need that stuff in the NBA. NBA is somewhere in between us, but the MLPA has the strongest union on purpose. And I feel like it's a little bit weaker now, but that's what's happening here. So the reason we don't want to cap, the reason Bryce Harper doesn't want to cap, is because effectively capping the amount of money that the Los Angeles Dodgers can spend will only lower the total amount of money spent on the team players. Let me give you a hypothetical here. Let's say that $135 million contract, 5-year, 135 is the max contract. Just a random number thrown out there. Okay? Every team can afford that. Okay? Let's just assume that we have a cap system now. There's a floor, it's 90%, whatever. We actually get a floor, even though that's usually been a non-starter. Let's say that happens. They say, hey, Blake Snell, LA offers you 135 for 5. Great. Pittsburgh offers you 135 to 5. Okay? Let's assume that the teams are run and owned by the same people. Blake Snell's still going to the Dodgers because they're a better run team that knows how to win with player development and good young players. They know how to make players better. Players want that. That's what they want. All money created equal, that's what they want. So what is the benefit now? The same scenario just played out, but who benefited? The owners. They don't have to spend the money anymore. It's going to do the opposite. It's going to do the opposite. It's still going to be top heavy in the same way because those teams are better at making baseball teams. And players know that. And when you remove the ability to outbid, that's one less thing that is attractive about those teams. So it's just not going to work it just isn't going to work that way because of the nature of the game and how it's played. It's just not. So the reason it's not in there is because of control. The players are controlled by their teams forever. There's 6 years of control, whatever. Like they control for 6 years. There's 3 years of arbitration. All those things don't exist in other sports. So of course, that's why we have uncapped money because all those other things were given up. Okay? So here's what I'll leave you with at the end. Let's say we all want a cap and that this will work. I'm with you. Let's have a cap. Okay? In order to do that, we have to do 1 or 2 more things. I keep grabbing the wrong thing. Okay. Okay, one of these 4 things need to happen. Okay? One, less ARB years, meaning you get to free agency faster. 2, I'm going to not put that behind my head. I'm moving something else. Again, I have the wrong, oh my God. I'll get used to this, I promise. Okay, less ARB years, boom. 2, financial transparency. You got to tell us what the revenue is, where it's coming from, and how much there is, and we got to be able to see it. 3, there has to be a floor. And 4, rev rules. We need, that's not how you spell rules. We need to have clear rules of what revenue is, and if they break them, there needs to be recourse. Why do you think these things have not been accepted or not been put in play? The owners have walked away from the table every single time in the past that those 4 things have been talked about. Every single time those have been mentioned, they walked away, didn't even listen. So that tells me what they actually want a cap for is to put a hard limit on their biggest expense, labor. Like they just want to be able to know for a fact how much labor is going to cost them every year, maximum, because it makes maximizing profits a more clear picture. And that's generally what they want. And they feel like now is the time to talk about that. And guess what? As a business owner, it's okay to take that stance. That's fine. It really is. Right? I don't think it's evil. I don't think people are bad. I don't. It's their job. It's Rob's job as well. Like he's a lawyer, labor lawyer. I don't understand why you would choose that job. Actually, I do. You make $20 million a year. But if you're not willing to listen on those things, that tells me that the things that you're saying and the intent you have isn't. And that's what Bryce Harper is saying. Bryce is like, you won't like these things, so stop talking about this. We said we want this. If you want that, you've said no every time, so stop bringing it up. And he was frustrated and annoyed by it. And then he got into the commissioner's face. And that makes
at some
Trevor
point,
happy.
we're going to laugh about how
that is not what I want. That makes Trevor happy, all right? Any questions, class? I'm sorry I get so fired up about stuff, but I just want to, it's confusing. It's confusing. It doesn't make sense. A lot of people are like, what is actually happening? It doesn't need to be this way. What I want and what players want is just the opportunity to determine what fair is and then get that. We just want to establish what fair is and work together to make everything as good as it can be for both. Like, I have no problem with that. If everyone benefits and I don't feel like I'm constantly being taken advantage of and being talked down to, then I'm cool with it. But for some reason, that is too much power. Having a seat that's almost equal at the table, not equal, it'll never be equal, but almost equal as peers is just too much power. So, and that's frustrating, and he got really frustrated by it and yelled at the commissioner. So that is where that came from. That is the thought processes he's thinking about, and that is why some players are going to seem really angry, is because we've heard this before, and we have the same problems with it that we've always had, and they know that, and they refuse to move at all on the things that we need to have this discussion. So I want to communicate that with you. Hopefully it's more clear now and that you are feeling a little bit better about it. That's it. So I want to know what you guys think my solutions be. I think it's about incentives. I believe that it's going to be about, instead of setting hard limits that can't be changed, you incentivize things that benefit both people. But again, we got to agree on what the problems are first. Use incentives, meaning like there is additional revenue you get out of the revenue sharing deal if you want to sign a free agent that is already on your team after 6 years. Like you get a bonus, you get to go a little bit higher, or you get additional funds to use. And then we'll see if owners actually want to use those funds for players, which most of them don't. Some of them do, but most of them don't, and they won't do it. So them saying they would do that is a lie, right? At that point, we'll know at that point. So there are ways to do it. We need to agree on what the issues are and all be on the same page that we want to solve them, and just get creative about it. And we can't be like, there can't be so many walk away from the table issues. There can't. Both sides. Yeah, I'm talking about the PA too. Like, you just got to be like, oh, we'd totally be open we would talk about a cap if these 4 things were also on the table. And if that's the case, that's a good place to start. And I hope that's where they do. I hope they do, because I do not want this to be locked out. I don't want to listen to every single person on every direction say billionaires and millionaires are ruining our lives because we don't get to watch baseball, and then millionaires, like, that stuff is just, unions are important. Just look around you, man. Everyone just look around and say, man, working people having no say in anything really is not working very well. It's about having a conversation and a dialogue, and we need to create as many situations as that as possible. So that's where I'm at. I don't want there to be a lockout, and I want there to be baseball in 2027, because it would be really, really dumb to miss games over some silly stuff like this, because at the end of the day, everyone is making money. Like, I don't think it's as dire. I don't think these issues are as dire as they're being thrown out. I think the MLB is acting like, Major League Baseball is acting like they're dire, and the PA is just reacting. And that is never a good situation either. We also see how that works. So that's the news. That's going to be a video. Okay, we're going to get into mansplaining right after the break. We're going to talk about trades. We're going to talk about the Emmanuel Clase situation, and we're going to get into some AMA and some nasty pitches. We're going to have quite the busy last hour. And before I get out of here and switch you over, I'll see you over at Trevor May Baseball. For those of you on YouTube that are going to come over with us, please do that. The third player, the player to be named later, is Jose Butto. Man, they gave away actually a lot for Tyler Rogers. We'll see how that works. I think it's great, but it is yet to see. Anyway, I'll see you in just a moment. Bye.
you have the best VPN in the game? Are you saving enough on your VPN? You got to check out surfshark.com/Val or use the code FOUL at checkout on the site to get 4 extra months of Surfshark VPN. There's a risk-free 30-day money-back guarantee at surfshark.com/Val. Kratz, if you're on the go a lot, you got to check out Surfshark.
It's a no-brainer. I'm at the beach, so I should know something about a surf shark. Just saying. Get it done. 30 days.
That's right. Secure your digital life with Surfshark VPN. You can hit the link below for 4 extra months of Surfshark, either on the podcast page or on the YouTube channel. Don't let online threats catch you off guard. This has been your tech update. You want to keep your data safe and make sure you check out Surfshark today. It's a 30-day money-back guarantee. You can secure your digital world right now.